So you can break up the world into those who pledge allegiance to moral purity and those who don't. So you have an out group and an in group based on loyalty to moral purity. That's how I see myself against the world. I don't pledge allegiance to sexual moral purity that those people around me act as if they don't act, but they speak as if they do. They have supposedly internalized the ideology or so-called morality behind the sex laws that are currently in effect, which is feminism. So my tribe has not done that. And that's the most significant distinction between humans that I experience. That means I have this very tiny tribe who rejects the feminist sex laws. I am so rare that I only have friends online. There's nobody around me that identifies as a sexualist. They all, probably mostly don't pay attention to it, but they implicitly agree with the feminist anti-sex bigotry. So I belong to a tribe of sexualists that is dispersed around the world. That is a movement that is not recognized as a movement because we are too hated to be included in the political landscape. But we are a movement and we have an identity as sexualists. Those who don't believe in this ridiculous anti-sex bigotry that this society stands for. As I am showing in my videos, past and future, you can see what that is, and I'll try to describe it in a sort of low-key way so I don't get banned. You will see what I mean. Moral purity. It's all about the moral purity. It's not about how you act. Because the normies don't act differently. They just subscribe to this overarching ideology that sex is the worst thing in the universe. They don't act differently except when they're in court. And you have this machine grinding down our sexuality, and then they play their parts. They don't actually act it unless they are a prosecutor in that system. The central tenet of moral purity, according to this society, is the metaphysical badness of sex. You're supposed to believe in this parallel world, or this metaphysical platonic world, or whatever it is, that has absolutely no causal connection to this world, but which consists of these sexual souls. Everybody has a sexual soul in that anti-sex world, or this anti-world, whatever. And we are supposed to believe that if we violate the moral purity of feminism, then these sexual souls are either abused, damaged for life, or if you are what they consider perpetrators, abusers, then your soul there is condemned. And you are a condemned man or even woman in this world. It's all about the metaphysical badness of sex. And that badness exists whenever you shine a light on sexuality. The badness is always there, but people go about their business most of the time as if they're normal. And then when it's convenient to accuse, because you can get compensation, or you have some kind of reason to accuse, or the system itself is on a witch hunt, which is constantly, but they can't catch everyone all the time. They can only shine a narrow light at any given time on human sexuality. But whenever they shine that light, they always find criminality, and then you are supposed to believe in the metaphysical badness of sex that underpins the ideology behind these laws that they are enforcing. And the bizarre thing is that people play their part. They don't question it. They let the system apply these laws as if there's an infinite metaphysical badness to sexuality. This badness exists, according to them, when nobody in this world has any experience of it. It still exists. You can enjoy sex for life, and you're still abused because of this metaphysical badness that this society believes in. It's a supposed purity violation that sexuality is. I don't believe in that purity. I don't pledge allegiance to it. I consider it nonsense. And that makes me different. That's what sets me apart and has defined my life. Made me a dissident, a misfit, not a criminal, but they tried, and I was acquitted. But ideologically, of course, I'm a criminal. Like I said, whenever you shine a light, you find criminality. And it's only a matter of resources. For any given man, if he's imprisoned, it's a matter of how much resources the state has to prosecute him, right? And the random nature of where they shine this light. Because all men are obligate sex offenders. That's our nature. Because our nature is, shall we say, fallen, if we use an old religious term, but that's not how it's conceptualized anymore. It's conceptualized as the metaphysical badness of sex. This has entered the secular morality, even though it's compatible with religious zealotry. Some kinds of it are like the Christian moralism that we had back in the 1600 and 1700, when in Norway we criminalized what was called leiemål, lay case. We criminalized all the same things, except with one exception. We didn't criminalize sex within marriage. Now we just criminalize everything. The same laws apply everywhere. Everything is abuse. So we have come to regard all of sexuality by default being rape and abuse. It's something infinitely bad. and you're supposed to act as if this is just what we do. We persecute sexuality around here. We can remove you from society for life just for shining this light on your sexuality. Peculiar is that nobody is different. Nobody is exempt from this unless they're completely asexual. So humanity has become allergic to itself. That's the effect, the concept, the conceptualization usually that's very apparent to me how this justice system works now, and how this ideology has infested us. It has infested the justice system, academia, and the mythology that the normies will repeat when they say things like the teenage brain isn't developed, so it's metaphysically impossible for them to have sex without being abused. That sort of thing. The belief in the metaphysical badness of sex, they get to invalidate 100% of experience based on this metaphysical belief. In this case, it's the brain, right? That's something you never directly observe. You can only observe how a person acts, right? And all of that is invalidated based on this unscientific and disproven and bullshit claim about the brain. And then the normies will repeat that in their mythology. And that's just one little piece of this overarching anti-sex bigotry that I refuse to accept. Let me give a couple of examples to illustrate this belief in the infinite badness of sexuality that had just come to light in the last day, because this is constant. Here's this story about War and Beauty. We have these special look-back laws because the normal laws are not enough. And even when we have other laws that make it impossible to prosecute sexuality anymore, statute of limitations, then we need to pass special laws regarding sexuality because sexuality is infinitely bad, to cancel those other laws so we can have a witch hunt, so we can live out this ideology, this moral purity, morality about sexuality. There has no limits. It only ends when you die, because he is here 85 years old and they're going after something that happened 50 years ago. So it's completely lawless, because when you can pass a law to cancel the statute of limitations, then you are lawless. Might as well just have brute force, because it doesn't matter what the law says. Because the badness of sexuality is such that you can always override that law if it's not harsh enough. And it never is. So it just continues. And what did he do here? This also illustrates that the lightest possible kind of so-called sexual abuse gives the most infinite persecution, extending back as far as a human can live, and disregarding all the principles of justice that you can possibly imagine, because you just make new ones to accommodate sexuality's infinite badness. What did he do? He had a relationship with a girl that he had just simply because he was attractive. He was a celebrity, she liked him, and that was that. And yeah, you can abuse girls by being attractive. That is because this anti-world where your sexual soul is violated while you're enjoying yourself in this world. That's what counts. That's what we're supposed to pretend is reality. So this girl in the 70s was having fun, and then now we pretend that was abuse. And the normies will think this, well, they will put it in words, like they don't speak in these terms that I do with the metaphysical badness. They will put it in words that accommodate their current so-called or so believed rational thinking. Like they will use the category underage as if that's meaningful, and they will believe or act as if that has some kind of validity in this world. Although it's all metaphysical, it's not psychological, it's metaphysical. Because it overrides psychology, because the psychology was that she was attracted and had a relationship with a man that she found attractive. He was even young himself at the time. He had everything that makes normal girls attracted. And that is abuse because of the infinite badness, the infinite metaphysical badness of sexuality that this civilization believes in. And we bend over backwards, make new laws. The only limitation on making new laws to accommodate the witch hunt is the imagination of the witch doctors, of the feminists who make these laws. They get everything they ask for. They're only limited by their imagination. What more can we define as abuse? When we have this concept of grooming that covers literally everything, no matter how much she enjoys it and how attractive he is and how attracted she is, you already reached the limit of what you can encapsulate as abuse, because it covers everything. Everything is abuse. And my second example is what they call the grave resolution. And who calls it that? That's some philosopher, ethicist, writing in a journal here, where they've recognized that it's somewhat puzzling. Well, only some philosophers recognize this. That it's somewhat puzzling that we have this exception to entertainment and fiction, where it's taboo to fantasize, fictionalize what they call child molestation, and as child sexual abuse, sex with minors. That has its own special exception, which is codified in these child porn laws, right? Philosophers have recognized that there's something a little bit odd here, at least. They go far enough to realize there's something odd about this exception, that we have this kind of information that has this special position as the only thing we're gonna criminalize you just for possessing, just for having a fantasy. Just thought crime, basically. Well, this philosopher has come up with what he thinks is a justification for that, which is the grave resolution. And how he does that is simply by repeating the dogma that sex is the first thing in the universe, it's worse than murder. So there you have it. There you have it. So these were just two examples of this constant barrage of anti-sex that I have witnessed my entire life. Just gets worse and worse. And I am very lonely as somebody who's not participating in this witch hunt or ignoring it. But I feel the pain of all these accused men, all these prosecuted men and women who are accused of sexual moral purity violations and therefore are hunted with no limit by this civilization. There is, as we have seen, no limit to what they can do except their imagination. That's the only thing holding the feminists back. They will get any law they ask for. They just don't have enough imagination and enough resources. Well, they can get any law they want. They pretty much have that already. But it's a matter of resources to prosecute all these crimes, because there's a limit to how many people can be in this outgroup that you persecute. For obvious reasons, society can't just cannibalize itself completely, but we haven't gotten near the limit yet. I imagine the limit would be something like whenever you have a major war and a significant portion of the men die off, that could happen in this type of witch hunt as well. Could exterminate a good bit of the population, maybe after something like 40% could simply be exterminated by defining them as morally impure because of sexuality. I can see us doing that if we don't collapse financially and due to peak oil and all that. It can easily get much worse because they haven't gotten around to really exterminating men yet. They just put them in prison, and they haven't even maxed out the capacity of what they could potentially put into building these this prison system that we could have. It could be worse than the gulags at least. And right now it's mostly theoretical, except when you have these random persecutions, right? You have this theoretical criminality that applies to everyone, because no one actually lives like the ideology prescribes. I am just like everybody else in that regard, but I'm not like everybody else ideologically. I refuse to believe in the infinite metaphysical badness of sex.